My sister demanded I pay her daughter's college tuition, $52,000 per year. You owe me after everything I've done. What she'd done, borrowed my car 6 times. I said, let me think about it. I thought for 11 seconds. Then I called my financial advisor. That college fund I set up for my niece? Redirect it. To where? My lawyer sent my sister the paperwork. She called me 91 times in 4 hours. It happened at my niece's college send-off dinner in the middle of my mother's dining room, with everyone watching and pretending not to. My sister Jenna stood up, tapped her glass, and announced that since Bella was going to her dream school, the family needed to show up. Then she started passing out little navy envelopes. One to my parents, one to our brother, one to 2 cousins who barely spoke to Bella all year. And then she looked straight at my son, Miles, sitting beside me with his hands folded like he was trying not to take up space. She skipped him like he was a chair. Miles had worn the only button-up he owns. He even gelled his hair the way I showed him in the bathroom mirror before we left. He'd been proud. He'd told me in the car, I'm going to tell Bella congrats and everything. He'd also brought a card he made himself. A simple one. A little drawing of a graduation cap and a chef hat side by side. Because he knows I'm a chef and he thinks that means I can do anything. Jenna didn't even look at him. My mom smiled like nothing happened. Like Miles wasn't sitting there. My dad cleared his throat and stared at the table. Miles blinked a few times, then quietly slid the card back into his pocket. I felt my jaw lock. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Jenna finished handing out her envelopes and announced what they were. Pledges, she said, grinning. We're doing this as a family. No pressure, but actually, yeah, pressure. People laughed. Then she turned to me like the finale of the show. And Simon, she said, sweet as frosting, yours is already decided. You're covering the rest. I waited for someone to laugh like it was a joke. No one did. Jenna kept going, voice loud, confident, practiced. Tuition is $52,000 per year, she said, like she was reading off a menu. And that doesn't even include housing. But it's fine because you owe me after everything I've done. I stared at her. What? I said carefully, have you done? She rolled her eyes like I was being difficult on purpose. Oh my God, she said. Like everything. For years. Miles shifted beside me, shoulders slightly hunched. He was listening. Of course he was. Jenna lifted a finger and started counting. I've been there for you. I've helped you. I've supported you, she said. Then she landed on her big example, like it was the mic drop. I borrowed your car, like, 6 times when mine was in the shop, she said, smug. 6 times. That was her everything. I could feel my hands start to shake under the table. Not rage shaking. That cold, controlled shaking you get when something finally clicks into place and you realize you've been the family's ATM with a pulse. Jenna leaned down toward Miles then, still smiling. And honey, she said to him, like she was doing him a favor, this is grown-up stuff. Don't worry about it. Just let the adults handle it. Miles went very still. He wasn't a honey to her 5 minutes earlier when she skipped him. I looked at my son's plate. He hadn't touched his food. The kid loves pasta. He'll eat it for breakfast if I let him. His fork sat untouched. I swallowed hard. I wanted to say something that would scorch the wallpaper, but I didn't. I just nodded once and said, let me think about it. Jenna's face relaxed like she'd won. Good, she said. Because the deadline is coming up and Bella can't be stressed right now. I looked down at my own plate and forced myself to breathe. I thought about it for 11 seconds. Then I picked up my phone, stood up from the table, and walked to the hallway like I needed air. Behind me, I heard my mother say, see, he'll do the right thing. Like I was a dog she'd trained. In the hallway, I pulled up my financial advisor's number. My thumb hovered for 1 second, then I hit call. He answered on the second ring. Simon, he said. Everything okay? I stared at the family photos on my mom's wall. Years of togetherness. Smiles. Matching outfits. And somehow, in every photo, I was either half cut off or standing behind someone, like I was background decoration. No, I said. Everything's not okay. I kept my voice low. Calm. Like I was placing an order. That college fund I set up for my niece. I said. Redirect it. There was a pause. Okay, he said carefully. To where? I didn't hesitate. To my son, I said. And if anything needs paperwork, loop my attorney in. Today. He didn't ask me if I was sure. That's why I pay him. All right, he said. I'll start the transfer process and draft the change of beneficiary. I'll send you the confirmation for approval. Thank you, I said. I hung up, put my phone in my pocket, and stared at the wall for a second longer. My heart was pounding, but my head felt clear in a way it hadn't in years. When I walked back into the dining room, Jenna was still talking about dorms, like my money was already sitting in Bella's account. Miles looked up at me, eyes searching my face. I sat down beside him and put my hand on his knee under the table. He leaned slightly into it. Jenna finally noticed I was back. "So," she said, loud enough for everyone, "you good?" I smiled once. "I said I'd think about it," I said. And then I reached over and nudged Miles's plate a little closer to him. "Eat," I told him softly. "We're leaving soon." My mother frowned like I'd broken the script. "Simon," she said, warning in her voice, "don't be dramatic." I looked at her. "I'm not," I said. And I meant it. "I'm Simon." I was 38 then. I lived in a small townhouse outside Chicago with my son, Miles, who was 9. I was a chef. Not the TV kind. The tired kind. I ran the kitchen at a busy restaurant downtown. Long hours. Burns on my arms. A back that always hurt. I came home smelling like garlic and smoke and sanitizer no matter how much I scrubbed. Miles was quiet. Not shy exactly. Just careful. He noticed everything. The way adults talked around him. The way people's smiles changed when they thought no one was watching. His mother wasn't in the picture. That's the cleanest way to say it. I wasn't going to turn him into a sad story for my family to gossip about, so I kept it simple. It had been just us for a long time. And for a long time, I tried to keep my family in our lives anyway. Because I wanted Miles to have grandparents. Cousins. A big, noisy holiday table. I wanted him to feel like he belonged somewhere other than a restaurant kitchen and our little house. So I kept showing up. And I kept paying. It started small. A couple hundred when my parents' furnace acted up. 1,000 when my dad's truck needed repairs. Then it became normal. I paid my mom's phone bill for just a few months. That turned into 2 years. I covered a $3,800 credit card balance for my sister because she had the kids, and life is expensive. I sent $250 every Friday to Jenna's account labeled groceries because she said Bella needed healthy food for school. Jenna would text me like it was nothing. "Hey, can you spot me real quick? Can you just do this one thing? Bella has a fee due." And I'd do it because I was the stable one. The one with a steady job. The one who didn't need much. That was their favorite thing to say about me. "You don't need much, Simon. You're simple." Simple. Like I didn't have a kid to raise. Like I didn't have dreams beyond making other people's meals and cleaning up their messes. And the biggest thing I did, the thing I didn't talk about much, was the fund. When Bella was little, Jenna had a meltdown one night at my place because she was convinced Bella would end up stuck. She cried at my kitchen table while I cooked boxed mac and cheese because it was all I had that night. I remember her saying, "You don't get it. She's special. She deserves better." So I set up a college fund. Not because Jenna asked me to. Because I wanted to. Because I thought that's what family does when they actually care. I put money in there every month. Not huge amounts. Sometimes $100, sometimes $300 when overtime hit. Sometimes more when the restaurant had a good season. I told myself it was for Bella. But deep down, I think I was trying to buy my way into being valued. Like if I kept giving, they'd eventually treat Miles like he mattered. That was the deal I made in my own head. It was a bad deal. The pattern with Miles was always the same. They didn't hit him with big cruelty at first. It was little things. Oops, we ran out of chairs when we arrived, and somehow there was always a chair for someone else. Oh, I didn't know he was coming when they made plates. They'd bring gifts for Bella and the other kids, and hand Miles a random candy cane from a bowl like that counted. Once, at Christmas, my mother asked Bella to help her decorate cookies and told Miles to go watch TV with the men. Miles didn't even like football. He just sat there quietly while my dad yelled at the screen. And I kept letting it slide because I didn't want to cause a scene. I kept thinking, next time will be better. Then came the send-off dinner. Jenna skipping him like he didn't exist. Jenna telling him it was grown-up stuff. And then demanding $52,000 a year like I was her personal scholarship office. That was the moment I finally saw the whole thing clearly. They weren't just using me. They were teaching my kid, right in front of me, that he was less. That he was optional. That he could be ignored without consequence. And I realized something else, too. They'd been punishing me for having boundaries long before I ever said the word boundary. The year before, Jenna asked to borrow my car again. Not to get to work. Not for an emergency. For a weekend trip with her friends. She said, "It's just easier because your car is nicer." I said no. Politely. Calmly. No drama. And after that, the little slights toward Miles got sharper. It wasn't random. It was a message. Pay up, or we'll make your kid feel small. And I was done paying. We left that dinner early. I didn't announce it. I didn't stomp. I didn't throw my napkin like a movie. I just stood up, told Miles to grab his coat, and said goodbye to my parents like it was any other night. My mother's face tightened. Jenna's mouth fell open. Are you serious? Jenna said. We're not finished. I looked at her. We're finished, I said. Miles followed me out without a word. In the car, he stared out the window for most of the drive. I kept both hands on the wheel. My knuckles were white. Halfway home, he spoke. Did I do something? He asked quietly. It hit me right in the chest. I swallowed. No, I said. You didn't. He nodded like he wanted to believe me, but he wasn't sure. I hated that. When we got home, I made him hot chocolate even though it was late. Extra marshmallows. The way he likes. He sat at the counter while I moved around the kitchen, and finally he asked, Aunt Jenna doesn't like me? I turned off the kettle and faced him. I kept my voice steady. This isn't about you, I said. This is about adults who don't know how to act right. Miles looked down at his hands. I tried, he said. That was the part that made my eyes burn. Because he had tried. He'd brought a card. He'd shown up. He'd sat politely while people erased him. He'd tried harder than any grown adult in that room. I walked over and put my hand on the back of his head, gentle. You don't have to try that hard for people who don't try for you, I said. He didn't answer, but he leaned into my hand again, just a little. The next morning, I did the financial part. One clean move. No speeches. No bargaining. I sat at my kitchen table with coffee and my laptop, while Miles watched cartoons in his pajamas. I opened the email from my advisor. There it was, the change of beneficiary form. I read it twice, then signed electronically. Then I logged into the account myself and turned off all automatic contributions to anything connected to Jenna. I reallocated the monthly deposit to a new account in Miles's name. The confirmation screen popped up. Transfer scheduled. Beneficiary updated. I stared at it for a second. My hands were steady. I expected to feel guilty. I didn't. Then I called my attorney. Not because I wanted to punish Jenna, because I wanted to stop the bleeding permanently. My lawyer asked me a few simple questions. Was Jenna listed anywhere as a successor? Emergency contact? Guardian? Yes, because years ago my mom insisted I should keep it in the family. So we changed that, too. My lawyer drafted a formal notice. Not emotional. Not personal. Just facts. The niece's college fund was no longer designated for Bella. Any future financial requests should be directed elsewhere. And Jenna was not authorized to access any accounts or make decisions on my behalf. My lawyer sent it by certified mail and email. Paperwork, not arguments. That's how you deal with people who only understand consequences. Jenna called me 91 times in 4 hours. I know because my phone kept stacking the missed calls until it looked like a glitch. She left voicemails, each one a different personality. First she was sweet. Simon, hey, call me back. Babe, we need to talk. Then she got angry. Are you kidding me? You can't do this. You promised. Then she went nuclear. You are ruining Bella's life. Then she went for the throat. You're jealous because you never did anything with your life. That one almost made me laugh out loud, sitting there in my chef pants with flour on my shirt, because I'd been up at 4:30 a.m. baking bread for a restaurant that paid my bills while she treated me like a wallet. My mom called after Jenna's 40-something attempt. I let it go to voicemail. My dad texted just one line. Call your mother. I didn't. I wasn't doing the old dance anymore where I explain myself until I'm exhausted and they still get what they want. Instead, I took Miles to school, went to work, and ran my kitchen like I always did. That night, when I picked him up, he got in the car and said, "We didn't go to Grandma's today." I kept my eyes on the road. No, I said. We didn't. He waited a beat. Are we in trouble? He asked. That question made my stomach twist, because it meant he was used to being punished for other people's behavior. No, I said. We're not in trouble. We're just changing how we do things. Miles looked out the window again. Okay, he said softly. And that was it. He didn't beg. He didn't argue. He just accepted it like he'd been waiting for me to protect him. That made me angry in a new way. Not at him. At myself, for taking so long. A week later, Jenna showed up at my house. She didn't knock gently. She knocked like she owned the door. Miles was at the table doing homework. Math sheets. Eraser crumbs everywhere. I walked to the door, looked through the peephole, and saw her standing there with our mom behind her. Like backup. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. Jenna immediately started talking. "Where is it?" she snapped. "Where's what?" I asked. "Don't play dumb," she said. "The fund. You can't just steal Bella's money." I held her gaze. "It was never Bella's money," I said. "It was mine. My mom did that hurt face she's perfected over the years." "Simon," she said, "this is family. You don't do this to family." I nodded once. "You're right," I said. "You don't do this to family." Jenna opened her mouth like she was going to scream. I kept my voice calm. "Miles heard you skip him," I said. "He heard you say I owe you. He heard you list borrowing my car 6 times like it was a sacrifice." My mom waved a hand. "Oh, don't drag the child into adult issues," she said quickly. I glanced past them toward my kitchen. Miles was sitting very still, pencil paused midair. He was listening. Of course he was. I looked back at my mother. "You dragged him in when you let her skip him at the table," I said. "You dragged him in when you sat there and smiled." My mom's face tightened. Jenna stepped forward. "So what? You're punishing Bella because you're mad at me?" she demanded. I didn't raise my voice. "I'm not punishing anyone," I said. "I'm protecting my son." Jenna scoffed. "From what?" she said. "From a dinner?" I stared at her. "From being treated like he doesn't matter," I said. My mom tried a different angle then. The softer one. "Bella worked so hard," she said. "And you know Jenna can't afford this. You're successful, Simon. You could help." I exhaled slowly. Here it was. They were saying the quiet part out loud. "You have money, so you owe us." I kept my tone even. "I'm not your backup bank," I said. "And I won't fund a family that makes my kid feel invisible." Jenna's eyes flashed. "You're being dramatic," she hissed. I nodded again once. "Maybe," I said. "But the answer is still no." Then I did the only thing that actually ends conversations with people like this. I closed the door. Not slammed. Just closed. Locked. I stood there for a second with my hand on the knob, breathing. Behind me, I heard Miles's chair scrape softly. He walked up and stood beside me. He didn't say anything. He just leaned his shoulder against my arm, small and warm. I put my hand on his back. On the other side of the door, Jenna was still talking. My mother was still saying my name like it was a command, but the words sounded far away, like weather. After that, the fallout came in waves. My brother texted, "Dude, just help her. It's for Bella." A cousin messaged me a long paragraph about family loyalty. Jenna posted a vague rant online about toxic men and selfishness and people who act rich but don't have a heart. My mom called my restaurant, not to apologize, to complain to the hostess that I was ignoring my family. My manager told me quietly, "Your mom called." I didn't put her through. I felt embarrassed for exactly 2 seconds. Then I felt proud, because for once, someone else saw it. And I didn't run to smooth it over. At home, I kept it simple. I told Miles we were doing our own weekends for a while. He didn't ask why. He just nodded. He started sleeping better. He started humming while he did his homework. One night, he asked if we could cook the fancy way like I do at work. So we did. We made homemade pizza dough. We let it rise. We punched it down. Flour everywhere. He laughed when the dough stuck to his hands. Real laughter. The kind that doesn't check the room first. We ate at the table, just the two of us, and he told me about school and how a kid in his class traded him a Pokemon card. And I realized something. My family's chaos had been so loud for so long that I forgot how quiet peace could be. A month later, an envelope showed up in the mail. Handwriting I recognized immediately. Jenna. Inside was a photocopy of Bella's tuition statement with a sticky note slapped on top. "You're ruining her future. Fix this." "No, please." "No, sorry. Just an invoice." I stared at it for a long time. Then I took it to the kitchen trash and dropped it in. Miles was at the counter drawing. He looked up. "Who was that?" he asked. I shrugged lightly. "Nothing important," I said. He nodded and went back to his drawing. A minute later, he slid the paper toward me. It was a picture of our kitchen table. 2 plates. 2 little stick figures. And above them he wrote, in careful letters, "Our family." I swallowed hard and blinked fast. I didn't want him to see me cry like I was breaking. So I smiled. I reached over and ruffled his hair. "I love it," I said. He smiled back, shy and pleased. And in that moment, I understood the closure I'd been waiting for wasn't going to come from my mother suddenly acting right, or Jenna suddenly growing a conscience. Closure was this. A kid who finally felt safe enough to claim his place. That summer, instead of paying for Bella's tuition, I took Miles to a little weekend cooking camp for kids. Nothing fancy, just aprons and bowls and a bunch of kids learning how to chop strawberries without losing a finger. He came home every day with flour on his cheeks and stories about what he made. On the last day, they gave parents a small plate of food. Miles presented me with a tiny appetizer like he was serving a king. He stood up straight and said, "I made this for you because you always feed people." I ate it in one bite and told him it was perfect. Because it was. That night, we hung his camp certificate on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a chef hat. My phone buzzed once. A final text from Jenna. "You'll regret this when everyone knows what you did." I looked at it. Then I set my phone face down on the counter. Miles was at the table, drawing again, tongue peeking out a little in concentration. I pulled 2 plates from the cabinet. "Dinner?" I asked. He grinned. "Yeah," he said. "Can we do the fancy way?" I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "We can do the fancy way." And we did. Not because we were trying to prove something. Not because we were missing anyone. But because for the first time, the money stayed where it belonged. In the home where my child wasn't optional.